Well, look, with all this stuff going on, Barnaby Joyce made a very interesting point last night about China and energy, that we need the best possible energy advantage to rebuild our wealth and our manufacturing as China grows stronger and stronger. And he argued, why allow some proposal about zero carbon dioxide emissions to weaken our economy? I have called it for months a national economic suicide note. We export coal to China to strengthen their economy, while they are building hundreds of coal-fired power stations. Tonight, I thought we'd briefly shift the China dial. Last year, I spoke to Paul Scully-Power, the first Australian-born person to journey into space, a world expert in remote sensing, a world authority in aerospace. He's received every imaginable award of scientific distinction, including the NASA Space Flight Medal, the United States Letter of Commendation, the laureate of the Albatross Oceanography's Nobel Prize, the Order of the Decibel, the highest award in the field of underwater acoustics, and it goes on and on. You might recall last year he was talking to me about the next world revolution, where big companies realise they can make billions of dollars in what is called space down here. That is, entering space, and these are my words, to revolutionise the way we live down here, the way we communicate, the way we feed ourselves. And he said that within 5 years, there'll be hundreds of thousands of small satellites in low Earth orbit, all involved with things down here. Virtually thousands of smartphones communicating with one another. And he told the story, not far off, the farmer, who will over breakfast be able to download an overnight survey of the farm from space with specific smart sensors. He'll look at the analysis that's been done overnight, check the action that has to be taken that day based on the analysis, tap his smart watch, send those instructions to the farm robots, and the farming begins. I will come back to that revolution again. But since we're talking about China, I wanted to briefly canvass with him tonight space-based solar power. Now, there's a US-Australia joint venture called Solar Space Technologies, but let's go to Paul Scully-Power because this is extraordinary stuff, and we will try and keep it simple. Paul, good evening. Thank you for your time and your scholarship. Are the Chinese in the vanguard of all of this solar power from space?
Yeah, good evening, Alan. Yeah, it's a really fascinating subject. I really got involved in it, space-based solar power, because I found out in my readings that the Chinese were very advanced. I've actually got in the original Mandarin their plans for building a space-based solar power system. Now, when you come to think about it, really think about it, and you mentioned coal to China and all that, the big battle 10 years from now is who's going to supply the energy needs of us down here on Earth. And space-based solar power is just spectacular. If you look
because
at the engineering...
Sorry, Paul, just to make this point, because as I understand, I've read what you've written, that the sun shines all the time in space. So this would be...
Yep.
This would give us continuity of supply for almost 100% of the time and infinitely cheaper than anything that we're using now. Am I right?
Yes, I've looked at the numbers. It's about a factor of 7 times cheaper. And just so that everyone understands, it's not really simple. You need to put 2 big blobs in space or satellites, one that collects the sun energy, and then the other one that actually transmit it down to Earth. Yeah. But the key thing there is you can transmit it down to Earth anywhere. So especially for Australia with rural communities, you can beam that energy directly to that community. You don't have to build, thousands of miles of transmission lines.
But Paul, you just said you can beam it anywhere. Therefore, if China win the race to solar power in space, they can provide energy for the whole of the world.
Oh, well, absolutely. And I'm saying that 10 years from now, energy, especially with climate change and reducing the carbon-based energy that is not carbon-based is going to be the absolute killer app, if you will, of the world 10 years from now.
But who in Canberra is listening to you? I mean, who in Canberra understands this?
Well, I'm not sure, but I do have some good news for you tonight, Alan.
Good.
And you may not be aware of it, but Barnaby Joyce is the chairman of a committee that's just been set up, a parliamentary committee in Canberra, to look into the future of space for Australia. And he's asked me to appear before it. And I'm going to elaborate on the things that you mentioned in the introduction, that it's space down here where the money is, the jobs are, and the innovation is. And
manufacturing and so on. So just before you go, I just want to reinforce this point. If China win this race into solar space and beat us and everybody else because we're asleep at the wheel, including America, beat us, then they have the power, along with everything else, to control the world's cheapest energy supply. Is that a simple way of putting it?
Absolutely, and I can put numbers on the cheapness. It'll be a factor of about 7 times cheaper than the power that we have today. And the incredible thing that I'm going to mention to the parliamentary committee is we have a company in Australia that's working hand in glove with a company in America, and they've already done all the design for a solar-based power system.
Marvellous. Listen, we're going to talk to you again. It's phenomenal stuff, a different dimension on China and its capacity to really expand to a position of taking charge of the world. They're not messing around. We've got to get out of low gear. Great to talk to you, Paul Scully-Power.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. How fascinating.
Anytime, Alan.
How fascinating.